Third time is a charm. Good morning. Happy Monday to you guys listening. I've been trying to press record on this and it's not working, and now I can see it's working. So happy Monday. Welcome back to Nutrition Talks with Tyson the Trainer. Today, I want to get straight into business. I want to talk to you guys about how to move away from tracking. Because last week when I talked about travel and I talked about people stressing out about, oh fuck, I can't take my food scale with me. How am I going to weigh and measure food? All these type of things. And I'm like, I couldn't remember if I talked about this in a podcast. And I couldn't remember if I've talked about this on Instagram. And I was like, fuck it, I'll make another one. Especially because I know so many people, like I don't see it talked about a lot about how to move away from tracking. You hear people talk about intuitive eating. You hear people talk about tracking their food. You hear people talk about not tracking, but it's like, okay, where's the tools to actually move away from tracking? Like, why the fuck is no one talking about this? So I was like, you know what? I'm going to be that guy. I'm going to talk about it with you guys. Because everyone's intention should be to move away from tracking. If this scares you, fan-fucking-tastic. You should definitely be listening to this. Because if you are using this thing as a crutch to manage your life, you are now controlled by something that you don't want to be controlled by, okay? It's a tool. It's there to be used. It's like, you get a hammer. Someone gives you a hammer. All right, sweet. You can go you can hit those nails down. You might be able to knock that thing back in. There's a few things you can do with it, but you don't treat everything like a hammer. Someone's like, I need to replace this glass mirror. And you're like, oh, don't worry about it. I've got it. Fucking bang, smash it. They're like, what the fuck are you doing? Oh, I can't open this door handle. Bang, I'm going to hit this. And it's like, no, you're not trying to use this tool for every single fucking thing in your life. It's just there to, be a tool for certain times. So I was like, I just had a mind blank there. But yes, at the end of the day, I hope that honestly worked. I'm just going to teach you guys how to move away from tracking. So firstly, I am not anti-tracking. Anyone who comes on board, I encourage them to track if they don't have any, previous eating disorders or they don't have any neurotic tendencies or any of those things. Because if they do, firstly, there's another method we use, but if they don't, the reason I get them to track is to help them to understand food and to help you to understand food. To know what's in food and to kind of take that food scarcity away, tracking is a great tool, okay? But there's two spectrums to that. Some people find it very useful to track because it teaches them, again, about calories in food, macronutrients in foods, and things like that, and it actually helps them on the right track. Other people get so neurotic and so taken down the track of tracking every little thing, letting it control their life, being scared of what's in food and the calories and the macros and stuff like that. And it's like, we don't want to go down that route, okay? You don't want to let it suck you into this never-ending thing that is controlling your life. Again, it's like health and fitness is supposed to fucking support your life overall. It's not meant to consume it. And if you are someone who was having, you have to track everything. You get scared when you go and eat out. You get obsessed about this stuff. It is a very, very dangerous tool that you're playing with because people rely on this for the rest of their life. And I'm like, what the fuck? As if you want to rely on this thing for the rest of your life, If you're a neurotic bodybuilder and you fucking froth tracking and you want to take your food scale out to a restaurant because you're fucking cooked, go and do it. But I'm telling you right now, I could not imagine anything worse. If I ever took a food scale out with me, I hope someone would fucking slap me in the face and be like, what are you doing, And again, if you're someone who is not in competition prep and you are doing this shit, Jesus Christ, please don't do this, okay? You don't need to go to this nth degree in order to get results, all right? So I'm going to assume those of you that are listening to me are tracking at the moment. And whether it's your goal or not, you probably do want to move away from it, or it could scare you, but it's still something you want to do. For those of you that have been tracking for any longer than, I would say, well, I'm going to say 6 months, 6 months enough to fucking figure out what's in food, what portion sizes look like, all that type of stuff. You should have a pretty rough idea about, guesstimating, which is what you want to get to first. If you haven't been doing that, when you're tracking, you're already fucking up. When you're tracking food, again, the goal is to educate you. So when you put food on a food scale and you're tracking it, you should be looking at what that portion size looks like. And you should be able to get very, very close to that portion size by guessing it instead of always putting it on a food scale, okay? So again, perfect example. You take out a teaspoon of peanut butter. You know it's going to be 20 grams a serving. If you're within, let's say 18 to 22 grams, you're pretty fucking good. That's bang on, all right? If you're not, practice getting better at guesstimating by looking and paying attention to what you're measuring, you're weighing out, all right? Same thing with anything you do. You're weighing out raw chicken. How much does 100 grams of chicken look like? Okay, what does that look like to you? Once you know, you fucking know. You're like, sweet. And then you can start to guesstimate. So you cut off a bit before, you chuck it on the food scale. Oh, it was 90 grams. Cool, you're very close. Oh, it was 120 grams. Excellent. Oh, it was 200 grams. All right, work on that. Because the goal isn't to be perfect. I don't want you fucking like, you know, I don't want you being on this, being someone who's so intellectual with food that you know to the nth degree that this slice of chicken is going to weigh 102 fucking grams. That's not the point. It's the goal is to be within 10 to 15% accuracy, because when you're not dieting and you're in maintenance and you can just, quickly do easy calculations in your head of guesstimating what this food is going to look like, that's where you want to be. Because again, maintenance is not an exact number. You're like, oh, maintenance calories is 2,500. Oh, is it? Your maintenance calories, or 2,500, I did a calculation and it's 2,517. Like, oh, okay. Right, so it's exactly 2,517 calories, is it? Like, God forbid you have 2,518 calories or 16 calories. We want to get out of these absolute numbers, all right? So maintenance is a range. It's never a fucking set number. It's, again, probably within a 10% variable, 5 to 10%. So if you're like, oh, my calories are 2,500, it might be 2,400, it might be 2,600. It's a range there. So as long as you're eating within that 10 to 15% range, some days may be lower, some days may be higher, you are going to be maintaining your weight, all right? This is why guesstimating is going to work really well, because when you're able to guesstimate within 10% of food, there's going to be no huge jumps in your weight all the time, all right? So start to guesstimate when you're weighing and tracking food to get an idea about what portion sizes look like. First thing, all right? Second thing, the easiest way to first move away from tracking is if you're eating the same type of shit every single day, and you know breakfast is always 460 calories and it's always your fucking overnight Wheat Bix or your overnight oats, or it's a protein smoothie. If any of those things, let's say you have 3 breakfasts on rotation, but you know without a doubt it's between 450 to 550 calories, you don't need to track that, especially if you're having it every single day. Just the act of not tracking that meal is going to get you in the right direction, to teach you just move away from it. And you're like, oh, so what do I do then? Do I leave those calories free in my fitness pal? Yeah, just don't track them. If you do the same thing with lunch and you do the same thing with dinner, don't fucking track it. If you are going to eat the same shit for the next 4 days and you've just got it already planned out, don't track it every day. Just don't put it in. It's just the act of not putting something in the app is what you want to get comfortable with first, okay? So again, if you're eating basically the same type of stuff and you know that you've prepped 1,600 calories or whatever you've prepped for the next 4 days because your bulk meal prepped on a Sunday, you don't have to put it in, okay? It's that simple. And you're like, oh, but what if I eat something else? Well then, I'm pretty sure you probably know that if you eat another meal that's 460 calories and it just easily subs out the meal you had, or let's say it's 700 calories and it's slightly over, and you know that it's slightly higher calories, and you're like, oh, well, today's not exactly 1,600. What's the issue? All right? What is the issue? You're at maintenance. Don't do this in deficit. Do this at maintenance is what I'm saying. Learn to move away from tracking at maintenance. Okay? So just that act first of, if you're eating the same type of stuff, do not track it every day. Just learn to not track that meal. It's as simple as that. If you're like, oh, but if I have different lunches and dinners, okay, just track lunch and dinner. If you know that you've always got 500 calories for breakfast, let's say, you just don't track that meal, and then you've got, at the end of the day, you've tracked lunch and dinner, and there's still 500 calories remaining on MyFitnessPal. Fucking sick. Good job. You did well. All right? That's where you want to get first. Just move away from tracking by not tracking the same shit again and again. Okay? Baby steps. This is what we do. We just do little steps at a time. This is exactly what I do with my clients to move them away from tracking. Once you get used to that, you're going to pick one day where you are not tracking at all, okay? Now, if you've followed what I've been saying and repeating for the last, I don't know, fucking God knows how long, and my clients know exactly what I say when I do this, when you move away from tracking on that one day that you don't track anything, you don't just fucking change everything you're doing. Okay, if you're eating the same food that you would eat, if you stop tracking, why the fuck would you change the food you'd regularly eat? Is my first question. Because a lot of people are like, oh, well, what? I can't not track for a day. Like, what am I supposed to eat? What the fuck have you been doing for this whole time? You know what you're supposed to eat. And for my clients that follow me, I tell them, hey, we're going to really work on making sure you're hitting your daily habits without tracking. Because they know I harp on protein and plants at every meal. Thanks to Mackenzie Baker for that. They know they've got to have 3 to 5 servings of veggies a day. They know they've got to have 2 to 3 servings of fruit a day. They know their meal has to have protein at every meal, okay? Again, you've been tracking for so long, you know what fucking protein is, okay? You know what veggies are. You know what a serving size of veggies is. You know what a serving size of fruit is, okay? You don't need to be exact. But then if you're like, oh, well, what do I eat today? You eat a meal. Every meal is going to be containing protein. Ideally, dinner and lunch are most likely going to contain your veggie sources. Breakfast will probably contain a fruit source, or if you're doing a smoothie, maybe a fruit and a little bit of veggies. And it's like you just follow the daily habits that you're supposed to be doing. It's like you're an autonomous human being. You can think. You've been learning these things, and if you've been listening to me and you're tracking, and you know you got to get veggies in, you know you got to get protein in, you know you got to get fruit in, then it's like you're gonna do that when you're not tracking. Like that's the goal. Every day, I just do like a little mental note in my head. Like, okay, what am I having for breakfast? All right, I'll get protein here. My yogurt's gonna be a protein and my protein powder. I'm gonna get my whole grains from my wheat bix. Now again, don't think like I can think about whole grains, all that type of shit. For you, it's just like think about, okay, where's my protein? Where's my fruit? All my veggies. It's that simple, all right? That's what you revolve your meals around. So you have that one day of not tracking. A lot of people, when they fall off, quote unquote, fall off track, or they overeat or they overindulge, they don't track it in MyFitnessPal. And I never want people to try and track their overindulging or their binging. Dumb fucking idea. But people don't track it when they do fall off, like when they do go over. And then the issue is they now associate when they're not tracking, they can eat whatever the fuck they want. You don't want to do that. Like, you're not a child, okay? Just because the app is not watching you for one day doesn't mean you get to fucking eat unsolicited and just eat whatever you want. Like, you still stick to what you're regularly eating, okay? It's about being a fucking adult here, all right? Like, if I'm a boss and I have to watch your every move, and if I don't watch what you do at 12:02 p.m. and I come back and you've fucking somehow ruined the project you're working on, and I'm like, I left you alone for 2 minutes. You know, I was sick for a day and I come back and you've set the office on fire. What the fuck has happened here? Like, you're not a competent person. It's the same thing with the app. It's like, you're not tracking for a day. It doesn't mean you fucking go off the rails. It just means you eat like you're supposed to eat like an adult, all right? Now, you're probably going to be freaking out. You're like, oh, like, I don't know, like, protein, like, okay, whatever you were eating the day that you were tracking, just eat that. So if every Tuesday, again, you're eating meals that are tracked that are 1600, just don't track that and eat the same stuff. All you're trying to do is not track food, okay? That's all you're trying to do. What you can also start to do is pay attention to your hunger signals, to your, to your appetite and how you're feeling. Because a lot of people, again, oh, I've got 400 calories left today. All right, I'm full at dinner. I'm going to stuff myself. Or again, like they just don't pay attention to the hunger. This is a great time to start paying attention to your hunger. Again, doing this at maintenance when you are not food deprived, when you are not tired from dieting, when you are not food focused, when you're in, like, when you're regulated well, when you're eating proper food and you're eating enough and you're not going to have these stupid, weird hunger moments, you then pay attention to how you feel on those days that you're not tracking, all right? So like, okay, I'm not going to track. I'm going to try and focus on getting my daily habits in. And then it's like, all right, think about how full were you after that meal? I was about an 8 out of 10. Perfect. Okay. How many hours till you started getting hungry again? Oh, like an hour and a half. Okay, were you actually hungry or did you see a snack that you wanted? Oh, okay, I kind of saw a snack that I wanted. Like, if you're hungry, do you want to have a chicken salad? Nah, I don't want to have chicken salad. You're not fucking hungry, okay? Don't bullshit me. So I was like, all right, so when were you actually hungry again? Probably about 3.5 hours after. Cool. Would you usually eat 3.5 hours after? Yeah, usually. Excellent. Your hunger's on track, okay? I actually was hungry an hour and a half after. Okay, what did you have for breakfast? I had a protein shake and a fucking LCM bar. Okay, probably need more sustenance there. It's a good way to start reflecting and paying attention to, because like if you're keeping full throughout the day, which will happen when you're at maintenance, and eating plenty of protein, fruits and vegetables, you don't have to worry about how many fucking calories left during the day because you're going to eat things that are going to fill you up for long periods of time and get you to your next meal. Okay? This is why daily habits matter. This is why it keeps you on track. It's not just for dieting, it's for fucking life. All right? So paying attention to hunger signals, following the daily habits, and then you got through that one day. You're like fucking sick, okay? If you can only cope with non-tracking for a day, that's fine. Just do one day. Do it during the week. Don't do it on a weekend. Why? Because everyone fucking loses their shit on the weekend. Do it during the week because you have structure with your job. You're probably, again, going to eat the same shit you usually do and you're used to it. Do it on a day that feels comfortable. If you can go for another day and not track, fucking do it. Do it another day not tracking. If you feel confident. If you can only start with one day, start with one day. The next week, try and do 2 days. There's nothing, you don't have to go from not tracking one day to dropping off MyFitnessPal straight away. That's not what we want to do here. I want to step. It's going to take time. It'll probably take you fucking 4 to 6 weeks. You know, oh, it's going to take that long? Maybe. But like, do you want to fucking get rid of it or not? Some of you will be able to move away from it very quickly, okay? Some of you will take longer because it's a crutch, and that's fine. The goal is just to fucking move away from it eventually. So if you can do one day and you feel confident to do 2 days, excellent, do 2 days. If you don't, the next week, see if you can do 2 days, okay? And if those 2 days are not tracking, just eat the exact same shit Monday and Tuesday or whatever it's going to be, just to get that confidence down, all right? To get that confidence up. Now, to help you not mind fuck yourself and start stressing out about moving away from tracking, this is also where measurements are still important, okay? Every Sunday, you should still do your measurements because what you're going to show yourself is that 1 day of not tracking or like 2 days of not tracking, or let's say you did a full week of not tracking. Show yourself that you didn't do anything stupid by doing your measurements and keeping yourself in check. And you're going to see, you'll be like, oh, okay, like you'll build confidence. Now, if you want a week without tracking and you ate like a fucking idiot, then what do you think is going to happen? The measurements are going to go up, all right? This is why we don't want to just let go of the reins completely if you're someone who's scared of this. You take steps, all right, to move away from tracking. And so, you gain confidence by, again, starting with 1 day, moving away, take your measurements, reframe your thought process about how this is going. It's making you feel good because you know you're making progress. And you're like, okay, nothing's going up. Excellent. I can still stay on track. And you do that. And then, again, I just encourage mostly trying to do weekdays first. Because, again, people lose their shit on the weekends, right? And it's like, oh, weekend free. I can have whatever I want. It's like, no. When you decide to do a weekend, do a Sunday first, I would recommend. Because Sunday, you're probably home or you're doing stuff that's not going to involve you going out on a Friday or Saturday night. On a Saturday night, basically. Like, just get the regular days down first of not tracking. Because, again, most people will not track on the day where they go and fucking do whatever. And it's like, no one wants, like, I don't want people to track on the days where they go and do whatever. You know, if you're having a Saturday and you fucking blow out, don't track it. But it's like, use that last, because otherwise you'll probably just keep falling into that Saturday habit where you're not tracking and you're having whatever the fuck you want. And then it's like, all right, so, when it comes to Saturday being your last time that you're going to move away from tracking, whatever it is, still follow the daily habits. And if you're like, okay, but I'm going to be going out tonight. And it's like, all right, that's fine. You're going to go out tonight because at maintenance, you do get a little bit more flexibility. So I was like, during the day, don't fucking starve yourself. Don't do anything stupid with doing extra activity or any of that stuff. Still just eat. Instead of being like, okay, I need to get this, like all these foods in, it's like, maybe for breakfast you have a protein shake or you have a smoothie, basically, a low calorie smoothie. For lunch, you just have like, main protein source and a veggie source. No carbs there. Increase your veggies, your potatoes, your veggies and shit. And then do it again at 4 p.m. So you've eaten a little bit less during the day, all right? You're still eating good habits during the day. And then if you're going to go, out and drink or whatever, it's fine. But it's like you're managing it. You're not just fucking saving yourself all these calories. Or, again, during the day you're eating whatever the fuck you want and you're blowing out. Like, we're just trying to manage this in steps. And it's like the more you can re-ingrain the habits that I talk about and the more you can practice them, the better you're going to be at being able to stick to this long term. Because that's all it's going to be, like, when it's maintenance. It's like, it just becomes automatic where every meal I think about, where's my veggies, where's my fruit, etc. And it's like the same thing. When I go out to eat dinner, I don't think like, oh, what am I going to choose? Because like, to me, I'm not going to fucking, like, this is just my personal thing. Like, let's go to Italian. I don't want to fucking go to Italian for the most part. One, because pasta doesn't fill me up. Like, where's my meat? God damn it, where the fuck is my meat, basically? Like, if I go out, I will get a steak, or I will get a chicken, or I will get something like that, because it's filling and I like it. I will get a side of veggies, because I like veggies, and the way veggies are cooked usually at a restaurant are pretty lit anyways. So, like, I don't go, oh, well, now I'm off a diet. All right, well, let's go out here. I'm going to get the lasagna here. I'm going to get the pasta with the, also a chicken schnitzel, and also this. It's like, this thing just becomes instinctual where you choose things that you're actually going to enjoy that usually will still tick the boxes, and that's where you want to be, all right? Now, again, does that mean you can't fucking have Maccas and stuff like that? No. But remember I talked about you guys about this before, the 80-20 principle, especially when you finish dieting, the 80-20 principle still applies. So if you start to have more days where you go out for takeaway, or again, you start to eat more shitty foods again on the weekend, and then you go out drinking, you go into these bad habits, you're going to fall back into where you were before. So we still have to make some adjustments. But what I'm trying to teach you is like these habits that you should be ingraining, or these thought processes, I guess you would say, which should become automatic, instinctual, thinking about where's my protein, where's my fruits and veggies and stuff like that. That should just be an automatic thing where it's like a part of your lifestyle, okay? People still go, oh, you're still eating healthy. It's like, what the fuck do you mean I'm still eating healthy? I'm eating chicken, rice, and vegetables for my lunch because I make it taste good by flavoring my rice and flavoring my chicken. I had some sauce to it. And because I'm eating this, you're still eating healthy, where it's just like, this is my lifestyle decision. Like, I don't know about you guys, but if I go and get something for lunch, let's say it's a sweet food, or let's say it's just like a takeaway thing. I'm trying to think of an option, but like, I don't really have anything. I can't think of anything. But, let's say you're like, fuck this. I'm not having my normal lunch today. I'm not going to have this meal that I made. Instead, I'm going to go and eat whatever. Are you actually satisfied after that meal for the most time? I mean, like, satisfied as in, are you full later? No, you fucking get hungry later, You have like, you're on the way to work, you have a croissant. All right, you're like, you know what? Fuck it. I don't want to have my breakfast morning. I'm going to have a croissant. Okay, cool. You have a croissant. What happens an hour to 2 hours later? You are hungry. A croissant is not going to fill you up. And like, that's what I'm like. Like, for me, it's just like a fucking trade-off now. It's like, do I really want to just have a shitty day of me being hungry and eating shit food that then makes me feel like shit when like I enjoy what I eat and it makes me feel good? Again, like, do I have fucking takeaway? Fucking no. You guys see me get Messina. I get snacks and stuff like that. But the majority of my day is good, nutritious, whole, filling food because I don't want to be a fucking hangry bastard or someone who's always just eating sweet, sugary bullshit food that makes me feel like shit anyways. Which just blows me away because like people will critique you for it, like, oh, you're still eating healthy, you're still doing this, and it's like, oh, I'm sorry, like, what's the issue? Tell me what's the issue. Would you like me to eat like a cunt like you? Because you don't seem very fucking happy. You're always having like an afternoon slump. You're always miserable about no energy. You're always miserable about this, but you're gonna fucking critique my food. It's like, I don't fucking understand it, you know? So making this a lifestyle is a lifestyle. And again, people will fucking give you shit for it, but it's like, if you enjoy what you're doing, you enjoy what you're doing. Okay? My biggest goal here, I know that was a bit of a side rant, but like my biggest goal here is just to help you guys move away from tracking, take away the neuroticism and things like that. All right? I'm pretty sure I covered all that stuff there with what needs to be done. So you take one day first, or one meal basically. If you're eating the same shit, you don't track it. You take one day off. If you feel confident, you can do 2 days off. You take your measurements every Sunday. Eventually you'll work over the weekends where you stop tracking too. Then you'll be fully off tracking and you'll be able to guesstimate quite well with everything. That's where we want to be. Last thing about this, people who go out to eat and you weigh or measure or you try and track your food, for fuck's sake, please don't, okay? Because you're never going to be close to your estimate. You're always going to be out. It's going to take away the fun from what you're actually doing. Most people have more stress over the calories that's involved in the meal than the experience themselves. Like, oh, I want to go out with my partner for dinner. Okay. Oh, but like, I just don't know what to have and I'm stressing about this. And it's like, but you want to have a meal with your partner and you want to make it enjoyable. Yeah. But like, oh, I don't know. Like, and then you finish the dinner, you're like, oh, but was that 600 calories? How much oil would have been cooked in that? Oh, and your partner's trying to have a conversation with you and you forget the whole fucking conversation because you're like so engrossed in thinking, was this 12 mils of oil? Was it 15 mils of oil? Do I reckon this cut of steak was 80% lean or 90% lean? Like, are you fucking serious? Don't ever get into that shit. Because again, like, I'm saying don't ever get into it, as in, like, don't let that suck you down. Because for me, the amount of years that I fucking never had a proper experience with food because I was always fixated before the meal, what I was going to eat, what I was going to have when I was going to get there, stressing out what the calories would be, forgetting about the actual fucking taste of the food because I'm stressing so much about the calories, not having a good conversation with people or a memorable experience with people because I'm so focused, and then afterwards questioning the actual amount of calories there is, and then trying to fucking math to see if I have any calories left over in case I want to get dessert or I go home and I can have something. And it's like, what the fuck? Like, That's not a way to live at all. Like, I did it, and I'm like, what? Like, I look back now, I'm like, Jesus, fuck me dead. Like, imagine asking your partner, like, oi, babe, what do you reckon? How many calories are in this? Do you reckon there's like 30 grams of protein in this, or 22 grams of protein in this? I don't know, for my partner, she'd be like, what I don't care. Like, she'll order whatever the fuck she wants, whenever she wants. And I'm assuming most people, most of you listening, your partners or family, whatever, would do the same. They'd look at you like, what the fuck does it matter? Like 22 grams of protein or 30? What's a protein? Basically, so like, don't get caught up in that. Instead, all I say to my clients, if you are tracking and you're like, oh, but I'm going to go out for dinner, save yourself 1,000 calories, okay? Save yourself 1,000 calories. Don't track it. Choose a lean protein option. There's always a chicken, beef, or fish option. Swap your sides for vegetables or salad if you can. Ask for the dressing or the sauce or whatever on the side so you can control it. Because even if you choose a lean meal, let's say, it's still going to be about 800 to 1,000 calories, no matter what you choose. Like, you're like, oh, but I chose a steak with veggies. It's like, okay, well, steak is actually quite high in calories, and they cook everything in oil, and they also use a side of sauce that's going to be a few hundred calories. So you're probably still going to be about 700 to 800 calories, maybe 900. So it's like you save yourself 800 to 1,000. You just pick a good meal. You're there to enjoy the meal, which means you chew your food, you pause between mouthfuls, you sip on your drink, you have good conversation, you make sure to taste the food, to be there and enjoy it, and you just get on with life. And you don't go after, was that 700 calories or was that 1,000 calories? It doesn't fucking matter. You saved 1,000 calories or 800 calories for it, you move on. Because guess what? You're not going to be accurate anyways. Let's say you underestimated. You're like, all right, saved 800 calories and it was 1,000. Who gives a fuck? It's 200 calories over. Who gives a fuck? Is it going to do anything? No. All right? You get back on with life. The less importance you give to this shit with the obsession, the easier your life is going to be. Okay? Again, we do not want this to become something that you just constantly think about 24/7. Because, like, what type of fucking life is that? Where something that's trying to get you healthier and fitter is turning you into a neurotic cunt because people on the fucking internet who are so obsessed with their body composition, who have to weigh and fucking measure everything. Like, when I see competitors and shit, like, okay, it's their thing, I get it. But when they're posting their food scale at a fucking restaurant, I want to throw the table. I'm like, holy fuck. Because then people get stuck in this, like, oh, maybe I have to do that. Oh, well, she's doing this. Or again, they tell their clients to do it. It's like, what the fuck, man? Like, you're telling this mum with 3 kids who wants to go out for breakfast in the morning, instead of trying to give her a good food choice, just be like, hey, get 2 poached eggs on toast, get some spinach on the side, get a coffee, save yourself, save yourself 800 calories. Instead of giving them just that, better take your fucking food scale. Like, better take your food scale to a fucking restaurant. Excuse me, do you mind, can you weigh the bacon before you measure it? Or can you actually weigh it and then just tell me it? Oh, don't worry, I've got my food scale actually. I've got my little pocket food scale. Oh, yeah, this is great. Like, mum of fucking 2 kids worrying about a food scale at a fucking restaurant. Like, Jesus. Sorry, another rant, but it just fucking kills me. Because I don't, like, again, like, this is such, like, food relationship is such a big thing to me, as you guys know, because of where I've come from. And I just don't want people to get sucked down this fucking bullshit. All right? So I hope all that was helpful. If you guys do have any other questions or you want me to dive deeper in regards to going out and tracking, which I said don't fucking do, but if you have questions about that, make sure to message me on Instagram. I'm happy to help you out. If you enjoyed this and you found it very valuable, do me a favor, just share it, okay? Just share it on your Instagram, and if you haven't given me a review, just take the 30 fucking seconds to do a review for me, okay? I just want to help get more people, help them out. Like, all this stuff is free. I just want people to listen to me so they can actually start making some really good decisions in their life with their nutrition and not to be stuck in the trenches of neuroticism, all right? Like, let's get the fuck out of there. Let's aim for good enough. I appreciate you guys for listening, and I'll speak to you next time.